What's up, guys? JP back at you once again, bringing you guys day number 1 in my 13th annual 31 Days of Horror. Yes, it is a start of a brand new 31 Days of Horror, just as I finished up last year's 31 Days of Horror. So yes, let's get into it. There is no theme primarily this year. I kind of messed up with the theme last year, so I'm going completely free pickings, free picks with everything. Whatever I feel like watching, whatever I feel like reviewing, that's what I'm gonna do. Could be some new movies, old movies, the works. I'm sure I'll hit all over the place. But anyway, with today's review for day number 1, I decided to go way back to 1959, and I have the title Jack the Ripper, coming to us courtesy of XIII Films. This is the title I picked up at a convention a few years ago and just never got around to it. 22 Shots is doing a top 10 of 1959 as our next throwback retro year. We previously have done 1941 and 1936, so now it's 1959, which, funny enough, is the only time we've ever gotten a 9 for a year. Like, we've never had 2009, 1999, 1989, 1979. So it's pretty cool. Finally get to hit like the end of a decade. But anyway, let's jump into this film here. First of all, I will say this version from XIII has 2 versions of the film. The British version and the English version. I decided to watch the British version because I assume it's a British film. I actually don't know, but it seems like a British film. Most people in the film are British. There is one American, though. But yeah, so I'm not sure what the differences are, but there are 2 versions, and I believe neither of the versions, there's a little blurb at the beginning that says that the original director's cut is missing, there's no known elements of it or whatever, so they use as close as they could cut. But anyway, let's jump into Jack the Ripper. So it takes place in, I believe, 1888-ish. I think that's when Jack the Ripper was around. That's just based on memory. It doesn't say that here anywhere. I'm smart, I know when Jack the Ripper was around. But no. So it's inspired by Jack the Ripper. I wouldn't say this is actually, obviously we know Jack the Ripper has never been caught. It's never been, I think, officially proven. I know there's been some new developments and stuff on the Jack the Ripper cases. There always is throughout the years, but in this film we actually know who Jack the Ripper is. So basically, let me just give the plot. So it is 1888 London. It opens up with a woman being murdered. The killer is asking her, "Are you Mary Clark?" And then he kills a woman on the street, in a foggy lit street. Then we're introduced to some police officers. We have a, what is it called, the Scotland Yard guy. And then shortly after that, a American guy detective comes in to help, an old friend, clear from America, from New York. And actually, he's it's funny, he says, "We don't have a Ripper in New York. That's why I'm here," or something. And I'm like, "Not yet. You don't have a Ripper in New York. Just wait 60, 70, 80, 20 some years and you will have the New York Ripper." But I think there was also, wasn't there an actual real life New York Ripper serial killer or something as well? I'm not sure. But obviously I'm referencing the Fulci film. So they begin to, try to figure out who this killer is. And the town's getting really upset because another murder happens, and eventually they just start blaming anybody that seems to fit the profile, and angry mob towards them. So that's basically the plot. Now the film itself, I do think it's like pretty solid. 1959, it's sort of like a slasher mixed with a giallo, because there are a lot of police procedural aspects to this film. But there's also like the whodunit slasher elements, which is also giallo, I guess. But like giallos really weren't around yet, so I'm not sure if you could call it a giallo. But I think it fits more in the giallo camp than the slasher camp. It's so fascinating watching films because they have slasher, like proto slashers and stuff like that. If you guys know what, the talk on proto slashers, basically slashers before slashers really they fully got the formula with like Black Christmas, Halloween, Friday the 13th. There's a debate to where like the slasher actually began a full-fledged slasher. For me, it's like Halloween, but I could see an argument for Texas Chainsaw and the other ones that I consider proto slashers like Black Christmas. Maybe Black Christmas is the first. I don't know. Halloween always just felt like it pulled together like every element that we know as a slasher film, and that became the full-fledged slasher. This is more in the giallo camp, but I think it's so interesting seeing films from this era and earlier, because you always think like, okay, like this was like the first slasher, then uh, you know Chainsaw was the first slasher, and then some movie from 1971 was the first slasher, and then then what, yeah, you got Psycho, and it's like you keep going earlier and earlier, Peeping Tom and Psycho, you keep going earlier, and now we're in 1959, and this feels like an early slasher. I'm not sure where the slasher really starts, but it definitely has elements of that. I would consider it more of like a giallo, like a British giallo before giallos existed in film. When did Blood and Black Lace come out? Because that's probably like the first one. I think that was in the 60s though. But anyway, it doesn't have like the colors, obviously. It's a black and white film. But it has the whodunit aspect of it. It has like a cloaked black glove killer killing women. It sort of has like those elements to it. I think that this one is pretty cool for its like reveal. And like the final, like, I don't know, 10 minutes or so are kind of intense. Like, I didn't really expect them to like go the way they did, because obviously we know the real life Ripper story to an extent, at least like as much as we know, and we know how that ended, or lack thereof, knowing how that ended actually, but we know how it was left off. Whereas this one, it is like final, like who the killer is, the people know who the killer is, and there's a resolution to that. Whether he gets away or dies or arrested or whatever, there is some ending, which kind of surprised me a little bit. I also really like the look of the film. Even like this transfer, like it's not the most beautiful transfer in the world, but it's like it's a little rough, so it makes the like fog like even better in a way. I don't know. I feel like the scenes at night where the Ripper's doing his Ripper things is really cool. You got like lots of fog and stuff. Unfortunately, as you might expect, 1959 censors. There's not really like gore or anything. All the kills are kind of like shadows, or from an angle where you see a knife come up and down and up and down, but you're only seeing like the top half, and you're not seeing like any penetration. So it does have that aspect of it's it's a 1950s movie, so it doesn't really have like graphic scenes, but they're effective for this kind of movie, especially like this is like the perfect October movie to like kick off the month with, because it's pretty quick. It's only like 80 minutes, 84 minutes, and it's just It's an easy watch. It's classic. I'd never really heard anybody talk about this one, except for, like, oddly enough today, the homie Tony mentioned that this was like an early slasher type movie. And I was like, dude, that's so weird because I just watched this, today. So that was pretty cool. But anyway, I'm going to come in at a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's a really solid old school horror film that if you've never seen, definitely worth checking out. Severin's worth picking up. Pretty cool movie. So with that said, guys, I will see you tomorrow, hopefully, with another review. Peace.